Previously on Oops All Bards. The Bards and Gideon have realized that the large cage and equally large gelatinous cube they found in crates of the train's cargo hold are meant to be a torture device for the acting Secretary of War, and decide the best way to thwart this plan will be to throw both out of the moving train. Kilonian attaches himself to a luggage rack and tries to open one of the freight car's doors, but struggles to do so with strength alone. Even more fortunately, Kilonian does not hear the screams emanating from the armoire that falls out of the car when the door opens. The Bards who do hear this make a silent agreement to never mention it to their shelled friend, meaning the demise of the final so-called porter aboard the train will not be on his conscience. The Bards begin to discard luggage and cargo that will interfere with their goal of offloading the crates containing the gelatinous cube and the cage. They start with the artworks they had earlier learned had ties to the old Malveaux administration, in case those pieces were meant to carry secret messages to his sympathizers. Cretacio attempts to hold the cube at bay while his compatriots handle the disposal. The Bards clear a path and even manage to find a dolly to help them with this task. They offload the cage and the cube, albeit not without the type of antics we've now come to expect from the party. The porter, who led the Bards to the cargo car while enchanted, and who was knocked out by Kilonian's sleep spell, begins to come to. Belle knocks the porter back out by wrapping her legs around his neck and constricting his airway. The Bards agree to lock this porter and the unconscious porter already in the kitchen into the train's walk-in icebox, vowing to hand them off to the authorities once they reach Tábortzava. The Bards fill up on snacks and decide to get some rest, hoping the remainder of their journey to Tábortzava will be a quiet one.
You wanted monsters all slain by their betters, but you ain't seen nothing like arts and letters. Look who has answered the cry of distress. Oops, it's all Bards. Oh, what a mess. You think we're a joke, but in truth we're all id. We fight like we learned it in books, 'cause we did. We all survived college with charisma impressive. Oops, it's all Bards, and yes, it's excessive. If you're still confused, we'll explain to you thus. There's nobody left, so that's why they called us. We'll fight or we'll otherwise roll for successes. Oops, it's all Bards. We hope that addresses all that you have to know to enjoy listening to our all-Bard party sent off on a mission. How'll it go?
Well, we're sure you can guess.
Oops, it's all Bards. Oh, what a mess.
Endra Carolhold, Urvara Hall.
Belsernamio, Flatley Hall.
Kilonian Stumps, se01ep11 College.
Clarice Sauercloud, Talmadge Hall.
Cretacio Thunderthigh, se01ep College.
Welcome to Oops All Bards, the actual play podcast that does what it says on the box. I'm your host and game master, Jillian Ashley Blair Ivy, but if you call me anything other than Jill, I'll probably just ignore you on the street. With me are our Bards. Bards, please introduce yourselves.
Tej Sinhadas playing Cretacio Thunderthigh.
Hello, I am Anne Coleman, and I play Clarice Sauercloud.
Hi, I'm Ashley Banks, and I play Belsernamio.
Hi, I'm Ross Curry, and I play Endra Carolhold.
Hey, this is Bob Killian. I play Kilonian Stumps.
And I'm Nate Runkle. This may not actually be my voice, but it is my production, for I am the producer of Oops All Bards. Good day to you.
Congrats, Bards. You are finally at the end of the train journey, which took way longer than I thought was going to take. But before we get into what's coming next, here's a quick recap of everything we did in our last session. Maybe not everything, but most of what we did in our last session. Having figured out that the large cage you found was exactly the right size to be inserted into the gelatinous cube you also found, and that both were the right size to contain one acting Secretary of War, Gideon Stormcaller, you decided that your best course of action would be to get rid of both crates. Clarice pointed out that the cage should be the first one to go because that would be what kept Gideon or anyone else from escaping the cube if it was submerged in the cube. So Keylonian went to investigate one of the freight car's large siding doors on the sides of the train. And after Belle attached him to a rope whose other end was tied around the luggage rack with one of her, we'll call it signature knots, Keylonian first tried to open the door with brute strength, and then, because I, your DM, had a little bit of a brain fart, threw a spell that should not have actually worked for him to open the door, but here we are anyway. When the door opened, there was an armoire in front of it that you had previously failed to investigate, and that armoire fell out of the train. Belle heard screaming coming from the armoire as it fell, but fortunately Keylonian did not, which means that the death of what is probably the last porter aboard is not going to haunt him for the rest of his life. Speaking of porters, Clarice briefly contemplated throwing the unconscious porter who is in the freight car with you and who had guided you into the freight car out of the moving train, but decided it was more important for now at least to dump the cage and the gelatinous cube off of the train. The party realized that you needed to make way for the crates containing these items to get to that open freight door, so Clarice instructed Andric to dispose of some of the contraband Malvo-era art that you learned in the last episode was brought onto the train by an unscrupulous but ultimately benign and kind of cowardly art dealer. Keylonian made an impassioned speech against the destruction of the art and in favor of free speech and whatever, but Gideon ignored him and dumped several large paintings into the passing forest. Then it turned out, Bob, you had rolled a 15 persuasion check as Keylonian, so then the party just decided to simply move the rest of the art that was left out of the way and clear a path. The Bards found a dolly to help make quick work of the crate containing the cage, and Clarice tried to take over for Cretacio, who was holding the lid of the crate containing the gelatinous cube in place, not knowing how much he was struggling to do so, because she felt that Cretacio was needed in the effort to help dispose of the cage. Gideon and Andric actually eventually moved to get the cage out of the train. Cretacio returned to the crate with the cube inside of it along with Keylonian, and the two of them, along with Clarice, managed to hold the lid in place with quite a bit of effort. Belle searched the body of the unconscious porter and confiscated the porter's daggers, and then tried unsuccessfully to knock the porter out as they began to stir. The Bards who were trying to keep the gelatinous cube at bay attempted to seal it back into its crate, but were really struggling to keep it from emerging. Meanwhile, the unconscious porter began to stir, but a quick-thinking Belle tried again to knock him out, this time by locking her thighs around his head, his throat, cutting off his airway, and I guess that kind of begs the question, who has the real Thunderthighs in this group? Gideon managed to tip the gelatinous cube's crate facing upward, making it more difficult for the cube to get out of the crate because the cubes can move laterally, but they can't move up and down, so with the opening at the top, it made it almost impossible for the cube to actually move anywhere. Cretacio wanted to immediately get the crate onto a dolly and dump it, but Keylonian was concerned about the ecological impact of dumping a gelatinous cube into the middle of a forest. However, the rest of the party outvoted him. Cretacio dumped the cube out of the moving train, rolled really high, had a nice little flare where he also slammed the door shut. And then after that, you all basically just decided to relocate the two remaining porters, the one who was with you in the freight car, and then the one who was tied up in the kitchen, to the walk-in in the kitchen so you could hand them over to on-base MPs when you arrived at Tábortzava. Then there wasn't really much to do other than to get some snacks, and I should note Belle really loaded up on snacks, and sneak in a little rest before you got to the train station, which is where you are now. As you roll into the Tábortzava train station, the platform is relatively empty, save for what is a very familiar figure to one amongst your party. Cretacio, your mom has decided to come herself to greet you at the train station.
All right. Gonna sort of puff out my chest and try to look tall and imposing, as though I have actually been training a little bit. Though I, just did one little montage. Just stomp over. Hello, ma'am.
She's going to look at you for a moment, like up and down, to see like what sort of physical condition you have kept yourself in while you were at university. And then she's going to throw her arms around you, her little tiny arms.
Aww. I'm just going to be very stiff.
Cretacio, I am so glad that you're all right.
I've missed you too, Mom. I'm glad you're okay.
It's after like
tiny hug.
yeah. Your arms can't really wrap around each other, so it's more like Like the necks are kind of doing the work.
Oh, like giraffes.
Yeah, kind of like giraffes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put in a tiny mention here. Shout out to the book T-Rex and the Impossible Hug. Tiny T-Rex and the Impossible Hug. Excellent children's book and exactly what I'm thinking about right now.
I've never read it, but I now just based on the title, that's what I'm thinking about too.
There's a whole series called Tiny T-Rex.
Okay.
Are you back to investigation mode?
That's just when Anne feels officious. That's what happens.
All right. So after an uncomfortably long pause where all of you are just watching Cretacio and his mother hug.
Oh, Belle is like watching with like hearts in her eyes. She's like, I love.
Yeah, this is really touching.
Gideon is going to clear his throat and be like, General Thunderthigh, good to see you. And she's going to look at him and nod. And you can do away with the general bit. We're old friends, Gideon. And they're just going to start walking. And the 5 of you follow behind. You hand off your hostages to some MPs who are standing around. What do you talk about? It's about a 10-minute walk to the base. What do you talk about?
I mean, I'm just going to kind of be directly behind Gideon and my mom, just to kind of like, I don't know, just to kind of not insert myself, but to just be the dutiful son that I'm trying to be, and just So I guess I would probably be listening in a little bit, but I imagine they're also having adult talking, so they're
roll me a perception check.
It's a nat 1.
But you do have a modifier.
Yeah, it's a total of 6,
Yes.
but it is still a nat 1.
So you are so like in your head about being back home that you actually are not catching any of their conversation.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Clarice is out of her element in a different way from basically anywhere else in this world. She has been so heavily entrenched in the world of negotiation and politicking and parties that being in a military place, she actually feels like she is a problem. The whole idea of merging politics and military makes her uneasy. She knows about in other places how there are coups and when military gets politicized, how problematic that is.
Well, in fact, a military coup is what overthrew Malvo.
Yeah. So she, just all of that context is kind of going through her head, and she is really, like, she did her job. She got Gideon there, and she's now in her head trying to figure out how to not be here. Just whatever she can do to find a nice way to go elsewhere, so that there is no reason to suspect that the military and the political wings are collaborating.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think in contrast, Belle is completely comfortable. Like, she's just, here I am. But visually, probably stands out like a sore thumb, right? Like, this military is organized and regimented, and Belle is fluid in motion, sparkle.
Well, so I'd like to actually pause there, because yes, you are noticing that the military that you are seeing seems to be regimented and fluid, which is pretty strong contrast to what Gideon had described the last time that he had visited the base. And he'd intimated to Clarice that the last time he was there, it was disorder. Like, these were a bunch of soldiers who'd never known a fight in their life and didn't seem to take this very seriously. So what you are observing, I think, as being conscious of the way that you are standing out, is the difference between like sparkles and hearts and flowers to marching and order and drills.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think like visually she is sticking out very, very strongly. I think internally, like, she's super unbothered.
Yeah.
Like, she's just like, oh yeah, this is how they do things. Like, it's not my vibe, but it's their vibe, and that's fine.
Okay.
Well, life gave us a pretty difficult and harrowing situation there. We had a lot of folks who were sort of out for our destruction and the destruction of others. We had a job to do. We need to keep somebody safe, and we did it.
Bodyguards!
We were bodyguards. Bodyguards.
Please don't say that around my mom. Yes, we are the bodyguard regiment here to protect the Secretary of War, ma'am.
I don't think they're listening to us.
They're definitely not.
That's right, Cretacio, and we did it. We worked together. Now, there were some hiccups along the way. We had a lot of violence happening on that train, but, life gave us a difficult hand, and we did the best we could. And I'm proud of us. Good job, team.
You too.
And Andric is conspicuously silent. He's still processing the whole situation.
I also like to think that as we're walking through this camp, that everyone, all of these, super regimented soldiers are just kind of stopping and looking at us like, who are these people? Because they're all in, uniforms and stuff.
Roll an insight check, actually.
Total of 15.
You noticed that you were drawing attention as a group, but you especially,
Yeah.
as the prodigal son, are drawing attention.
Yeah. I imagine there's some people who are like, oh, wow, he's back. And other people being like, well, look who showed up.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Look what the cat dragged.
So, as you're
And
walking,
he brought a really weird entourage.
Yeah.
so as you're walking onto the base, you see a regiment of soldiers that are being led by another Rex Folk, who gives you kind of a curt little nod, and then yells out, "Lift, lift, lift, right, lift. Thought he was dead, but now he's back, and when he strikes, we'll strike right back. Lift, 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 right, lift." And they barge past you, and all you got was that curt nod. As you continue to walk on, you see that there are combat drills happening. There's hand-to-hand combat, there's wrestling, there's grappling, fisticuffs, various martial arts. On a field beyond that, there are archers that are firing bows and arrows, crossbows. Some of them are flaming, some of them are not. Beyond that, there are a few trebuchets that are being launched. What you are seeing is a very well-regimented army. It is not what you expected.
Did you say the trebuchets are being launched? Or is it practice?
They're
tested.
yeah.
They're being tested.
They are launching from
yes.
things from
Yeah,
trebuchets.
what are they launching?
They're throwing the trebuchets.
Bags of flour. Right. Yeah. But they're actually launching watermelons.
Nice.
I thought we were going to say pumpkin chunkin.
We're close enough.
Oops, all bards shall return after these brief messages.
So you just finished walking through the camp. You've seen one thing that I forgot to mention as you're walking through. You're also going to see, in addition to the archers and the people who are working the trebuchets, there's a range where people are using spells, magical range spells. So you're seeing things like Fireball and Firebolt, which are two different spells, which we can decide whether that was a wise thing on Wizards of the Coast's part later. But Chaos Bolt, Eldritch Blast, all of these ranged attack spells you're also seeing being demonstrated on bales of hay, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of practice happening with the knowledge that we're probably going to be getting sent out to fight imminently. As you were walking through the camp, is there anything else that you want to do or look at or talk about?
Clarice is going to drop back a little bit, both because of her discomfort in this setting and also because she's clocking that Andric is not sort of seeming mentally present. She doesn't have a full read on what's going on yet, but she is going to slow her walk a little and try to match Andric's pace and then do an insight check.
Am I resisting this at all?
That's up to you. Are you?
No.
I rolled a 24.
Okay, well.
It wouldn't have mattered if you did.
Andric's countenance is sullen, but he always kind of is. But you can tell that Andric is really uncomfortable with the regimented nature of what he's seeing firsthand going on. And is also still processing what happened back on the train.
Clarice is gonna just keep a really quiet presence. She's not going to ask any particular questions to draw him out, but is going to try to make it, to the best of her ability, feel like she is in the same mood, like to project out the vibe in case Andric wants to talk.
And after... How far is this walk that we're taking?
It's like a 10-minute walk from the train station to the base.
Okay.
We've already been walking for a couple of minutes.
Okay, but it would still take another 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Before he says, you know, I've always studied this. War, the downfall of civilizations. I just didn't think I'd actually be part of it.
I get that. It's pretty surreal.
At least where my family's from, you know, the threats were always from without. You know, demons and shadows, and creatures from the other side. So I always knew that the inhabitants of this plane could fight amongst themselves, and frankly, I found it academically interesting. I just didn't want to be part of it myself.
I mean, I guess there's always a choice, but you want to be able to live with where you land on being involved or not.
Yeah, just... my family spent so much time worried about the threats from without that, forgot that we might be our own worst enemies.
I wish I could forget. I think our families are kind of the opposite. My family, well, let's just say we're always looking for enemies within.
And I think from that, Andric doesn't say anything further, but, like, I think would continue whatever your pace is. I think Andric and Clarice are probably going to just kind of stay quietly for the rest of the walk.
As you come up on the camp, you're going to see Gideon and Reina start to veer off toward Reina's quarters. And before you go too far, Reina's going to turn and cast kind of a loving look at Cretacio, and Gideon is going to be like...
Sorry, what level spell is that? Sorry, I know that has to go in the outtakes. But
no, it doesn't.
No, it's good.
Gideon is going to look at all of you and be like, just like, I don't know, keep yourselves busy. And they start to walk away, but before they get much farther, a tiefling comes running up to Reina and Gideon. Excuse me, General. And Reina's going to turn around. She looks so beleaguered by this person's presence. General, I know that we're to deploy tomorrow, but what of the talent show? And she... Are you serious right now? Yes, General, I think it would be very good for morale. They've all rehearsed quite a bit. They're ready to go. I think that the talent show should go on tonight as planned.
Can we all hear this?
It's very loud. This person speaks from their diaphragm.
I think in the midst of, like, the pretty serious, although small exchange that Clarice and Andrew... I'm just thinking back to those nights at Enchanted Ground when it was open mic night, and I think we just Clarice and Andric exchange a horrified look at what might happen.
Yeah.
And Reina says, like, the soonest you would be shipping out is tomorrow. So if you think that you can pull the talent show off tonight, do your thing. And Gideon is going to look back at all of you and say, remember how I told you to keep yourselves busy? Help with this. And the two of them, Reina and Gideon, are going to disappear into Reina's quarters. And the tiefling turns to you, extends a hand. Theseus, Ashate, they, them. Lovely to meet you all.
Who is the hand being extended to?
Just generally, like putting a hand out, whoever's going to take it to shake or kiss first.
Belle will 100% just go for it.
You look very familiar to me.
Thank you. I probably am.
That's it.
You're a Cernomial.
I am.
Oh my. Are you going to be able to help us with the talent show? I feel like your talents could be greatly beneficial to.
I am always ready to help others benefit with my talents.
Well, then all of you follow me.
We're all doing... Okay, all right, we're all doing this.
I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised that amidst all this turmoil, you still find time for the arts.
Well, this was long planned, and I do feel, however, that these soldiers have been working very hard on their acts, and honestly, they might not ever have another chance to perform them. So I think it's for the best if we continue on with the original plan, and tomorrow we can go off and fight, and perhaps some of us will live to perform again.
And if not, we're gonna go out with jazz hands.
Indeed.
Oh, God, there's two of them.
Your best friend.
Well,
So you're going to follow Theseus to the it's like a high school gymnasium sort of setup where it's like there are basketball courts, there's a stage where things are performing. It's also sometimes used as a mess hall for larger events. So like it's a multi-purpose room, but there is a stage. And it'll take you about 5 minutes to walk across the base there. Does anybody want to like do any checks or keep an eye out for anything as you're walking across the base?
I'd like to do an insight check just
Okay.
to kind of see how prepared everyone is. Like, is this a show that's kind of like being thrown together, or do these performers seem prepared?
Well, you're not at the
We're not
theater
at
yet.
okay.
Yeah, you're walking to it right now.
Oh, we're walking to okay.
But you can roll to see what Theseus thinks.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll roll to see how,
All right, yeah, so-
how Theseus actually feels.
Yeah,
this is
so
going.
do an insight check.
Nat 20.
I
useless
love,
thing.
I love these throwaway nat 20s. So you can tell that Theseus is actually pretty upset about these impending war that it seems everybody is being
such an
driven into.
inconvenience.
But no, not even in like
I know.
Theseus is an artist, not a fighter.
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
But like while worrying about being deployed to war tomorrow, Theseus is also worried about like if this talent show is the last great thing they ever do,
Yeah.
how great will it truly be knowing that there are a couple of performers that are questionable?
I see. Okay.
Anybody else?
Above table. Back when we were going past the field and like we could kind of like, because even though I was in my own head, I was still kind of like paying attention to things. Where the spells were being cast. Could we clock what like I'll say what level people were like? Were they casting these spells naturally, i.e., burning spell slots? Were they using scrolls to cast the spells? How was that happening?
You were watching them from a distance. I think it would have been really hard
Okay.
to tell. It's like you could probably recognize like the difference between an Eldritch Blast and a Firebolt, like, but you know because you are mages yourselves. But I don't think that you would necessarily be able to see like is somebody using a scroll versus somatic spell components versus a spellcasting focus.
Okay. I think the thing after, like, kind of getting to the end and meeting Theseus, can I detect whether there's any kind of, like, I'll say library on the grounds?
Roll me an investigation check.
6.
There are several outbuildings, but they're not particularly well labeled.
I also, while walking with Andric, am doing an investigation check of my own.
Okay.
But I'm specifically investigating if any of the buildings look like they're Malvo era or prior, such that they might have echo shards in them.
Okay.
I do not find out because I rolled a 3 and my modifier is +3, so I'm still under 10.
Okay. There are a lot of buildings.
They were built at some time.
To clarify,
They used to have stuff in them.
this is a military camp for the Rex lizard folk, or this is the general military?
So the lizard folk, when the coup happened, the lizard folk were basically like at the ready to help the military take over, and then it wound up being a bloodless coup. So to reward the lizard folk or the Rex folk for their willingness to participate, Gideon lobbied really hard for them to basically be like given this camp to run. So Reina is the general who is in charge of this camp, and this is the primary camp where the standing army is.
So it's
based.
like a base.
Got it.
So Rex folk kind of run it, but it is made like the soldiers are of all different
Yes.
lineages.
Yeah.
But it could
Got
be,
it, okay.
like McGuire Air Force Base or
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that anybody wants to?
I think Belle is just making friends with these.
Oh yeah, I think for sure.
Oops All Bards will return after these brief messages.
So you get to this the multi-purpose room with the stage, and you see it's like the beginning of a chorus line. You see a bunch of people like on stage, they're stretching, they're like doing their vocal warm-ups, they're doing like little dance drills, and people are like jumping in the air and doing quick little turns, that sort of thing. But it's organized chaos. There doesn't seem to be, as far as you can tell, like you can't necessarily identify, okay, well, this is this act over here and this is that act over there. And Theseus enters the room. Everyone, I am so pleased to announce, as long as nothing else bad happens, the talent show can proceed as normal tonight. So, this is our dress rehearsal, and I have some guests with me who are going to help refine everyone's performances. It is my honor and privilege to introduce you to Belle se01ep11.
Belle just like a wave.
Everybody like, there's like some gasps and like, ooh. You have stumbled upon the soldiers who would rather be anything but soldiers.
Yep. Her people.
Those who would rather sing.
For the record, when Theseus said, as long as nothing else bad happens, Clarice felt all of the tension return to her body. And immediately looked up and looked around like, anybody hear this? We're in a theater. Aren't you supposed to be superstitious people?
I feel like if anybody's going to appreciate the law of dramatic irony, it's Andric.
Yeah, yes, and because they've been walking lockstep, I think there's another glance between Clarice and Andric at this moment, like, oh, this is not going to go well on multiple levels.
He proceeds to tell everyone good luck and mentions the Scottish play.
You know what's my favorite play?
Yeah.
You guys should do
Oh, okay.
Maybe I should hang around. This could be tragic.
All right. After some shuffling around, seats are brought out for you because seats have not been set up yet for the performance. Seats are brought out for all of you, right facing the stage.
Belle signed some autographs.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the first act on the rehearsal schedule comes out on stage. This is a small gnome who is announced as being Doomzart Clagnus. But Theseus says, I'm so pleased to announce our first performer of the evening, Doomzart Clagnus, who you all know better as Bomber. Not for his ability to target anything with projectile weapons so much as his ability to bomb on stage. Doomzart, Bomber, come on out here. Woo! So you see this gnome kind of takes... You see this gnome take center stage. He's got a shock of blonde hair and pale gray eyes. And he's got the kind of confidence that, everybody his entire life has told him how funny he is, so he truly believes that he is a very funny person and should be doing stand-up comedy.
Oh, no.
No.
After somebody just called him Bomber?
Yes.
Apparently everybody calls him
Bomber.
Andric immediately stands up and goes back to like a corner of the auditorium that would be the equivalent of the corner of the coffee shop from which he often watched open mic night. Just
I need to be in shadow.
Away a little.
So what I will tell you for this and for the rest of the performers who are going to be rehearsing today is that we're not going to roll. You are basically going to decide whether this is successful or not, and you get to give feedback between acts.
Oh my god.
We are American Idoling this.
Yes. My whole life has been in preparation for this moment.
So this gnome steps out on stage. Hello. I tried talking to an orc the other day. I said, why the long face? But it turns out they look like that all the time. Have you heard about the enchanted forest nearby? Yeah, I tried to walk through it the other day, but I got lost for hours. Turns out the trees have a really twisted sense of humor. All right, okay, that one worked.
Did he say that?
Absolutely. I tried to date an elf once, but he said I was too gnomely for him. Get it? Gnomely? Like gnome and homely? No, gnome? Okay, all right. I'm thinking that these might not all be jokes. These might just be sentences.
Andric casts message at Bomber and says, I think that's your time.
Nope, still got more, my friend.
He says out loud.
Yes.
So it's just dead silence. Nope. Seems like I've got more time.
Why did the paladin bring a ladder to the bar? Because we heard drinks were on the house. Paladins. Paladins. This man gets it. He gets it.
Was that Kelonian's
not gonna do crowd work
laugh?
now, is he?
Yeah.
Why
somebody could cast hideous laughter if you want.
Why don't skeletons fight each other? Because they don't have the guts. I asked a sorcerer if they could make me more confident. They said they could give me a boost of courage, but it turns out it was just an energy drink in disguise. Now I'm jittery and afraid of the dark. Okay, moving on. I tried to learn a spell for invisibility, but I couldn't find the book. It must have been a really good spell book.
Bomber. I'm gonna have you pause there. Just for a moment.
Cop voice.
Yeah, you've definitely gone back into detective voice.
This is her interrogation and or delivering bad news voice.
Yeah.
So, have you? How many more do you have?
Just the one. Just one more.
Okay. Clarice looks around to everybody else, making all kinds of interesting vocalizations.
Let's see. Maybe this will be a doozy.
Clarice jumps in. Bomber. I'm just gonna have you take a second here, friend. Have you ever tried having like a person on stage with you reacting?
That's not how stand-up works.
As long as you're sitting down, technically you're still doing stand-up.
So
that off comment gets way more laughs than his entire routine.
He's like writing it down. That's a good one.
I just Clarice again clears throat for a very long time and then says, would you like if we just wanted to try something? And one of my friends came up there on the stage and like when you told the next joke, like they just like groaned a little. Like, how would you feel about that?
I don't see how that could help my act.
Well, let's give it a try. I'm here for a reason. No, friend. That's what we're gonna do. Okay. Well, we're just doing it for one. We're just gonna try.
And Theseus is just gonna be like, Trust the experts.
All right. Cretacio.
Yeah. Wait, are you asking me to go up there?
Yeah.
I think she's telling you.
So what I'm thinking, Clarice pulling Cretacio over closer, says, what I'm thinking is, like, in order to get humor out of this at all, like, what we need is for you to be, like, as disgusted by this, whatever this joke is, as possible. Just, like, the most, just, like, oh, God, what a terrible joke reaction, but without using words. Just like,
I only have one more joke.
We're just going to... just a moment. Do you get it?
I don't see the point of this. Why are we doing this?
Just let's try it, okay?
All right. So I get up, I thump over. I am this large 7-foot-tall Rex folk towering over this gnome. I plop a little seat, and so now I am 5 feet tall, towering over this gnome. All right, give us the last one.
And he looks up at you and realizes that his last joke is actually pretty perfect for that height differential. And he makes eye contact with you while he says, "You know, being a gnome is tough. I'm so short, I have to climb a step stool just to reach for my dignity."
I mean,
Clarice is like throwing air punches.
Yes!
And then he goes, "That is my time. Thank you very much. I know you just all call me Bomber. Good night."
These were really great. Maybe stay away from the things that, like, make fun of how other species look.
Yeah.
Stuff. I think the self-deprecating humor seemed to really strike a chord.
I will take that under advisement.
Great.
As Bomber walks off the stage, Clarice is beyond delighted, certain that she has added value, and is gonna beckon Cretacio over to say, like, that was perfect. That was the only way it was ever going to be funny. Just like, that's what's happening tonight. You've got to be on stage having bad reactions.
Wait. Now, hold on. I mean, I thought the last one was actually kind of funny.
Because of you.
I think I see what you're going for. All right, if that'll make this all go over smoother.
Oops All Bards will return after these brief messages.
So Theseus is going to walk back onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, and other them, such as myself, I am so pleased to announce our next act. You know him as Vestrin Dallingen, and literally nothing else. He's the one person on this base who doesn't seem to have a base name. We should fix that. Vestrin Dallingdallin and his familiar. Woo! You see a tall elven man who wears his hair very short for an elf. Even though you're on a military base, there's not an expectation of, like, military haircuts here. So, like, this is a personal choice that he has made. Pale skin, and what hair he does have is very, very blonde. So blonde, in fact, that at its length, it almost makes him look as if he's bald. And that makes his pointy ears a little bit more prominent. His eyes are large and hazel, and his build is sinewy. He looks powerful but lithe. And he is going to walk out on the stage, roll his sleeves up. You see the hint of a tattoo of vines wrapping around a stone tower. And he conjures his familiar, a rat.
Oh, Andric leans forward.
Oh no, we're not at the same taste.
I think we've established that before.
I think when he rolled up his sleeve and revealed the tattoo, Belle leaned forward too.
Okay.
Oh, what's that? Belle and Andric have the same taste? You don't say.
It's fine.
So, Vestrin's act is he does not speak. There's music that starts up, and the rat, small as the rat is, holds up a watermelon, and Vestrin grabs his longbow notches an arrow and sends it straight through the center of the watermelon, which is... The rat kind of pushes away the pieces of the watermelon and picks up the next largest fruit in the arsenal, which is a cantaloupe. Holds up the cantaloupe over his head. Vestrin notches an arrow, points it at the cantaloupe, sends it right through the cantaloupe explodes.
This feels like a rule of 3.
The rat picks up a grapefruit and balances it on its head. No. Vestrin picks up his longbow, notches an arrow, sends it straight through the center of the grapefruit. The grapefruit does not explode. Instead, the grapefruit just sails with an arrow across the stage and gets stuck in it.
Endrick starts to stand up while clapping, and then immediately kind of recomposes himself. And
Belle turns around and looks, and I think Andrick and Belle have this moment of eye contact of
The rat picks up an apple with its mouth, turns its head up, holding the apple up in the air. Vestrin takes an arrow, notches it, sends it flying through the apple. The apple goes sailing through, and that arrow splits the arrow that is holding the grapefruit in place. And now they are both mounted to the wall.
Ooh, ah.
I'm not making the joke.
Clarice, suitably impressed, but feeling that this act could use some zhuzhing, is gonna hold up a hand, probably standing on her chair so that she is visible. She's gonna hold up a hand that indicates with a single finger. Just pause for a sec before you set up the next one.
As you do that, the mouse or the rat is already holding a single grape.
Belle seeing Clarice's and knowing the theater language is going to say, hold!
And the music stops, and Vestrin puts his bow down and turns to look at you.
I am loving everything. Okay. I'm curious, have you considered spacing it out a little more or engaging the audience to build the anticipation? Because this has been beautiful. And this is a lot of rapid fire excellence. And I want people to really, in the audience, be able to sit with it and feel the nerves and anticipation.
You see a kind of slow smile spread across his face and says, "Thank you so much, ma'am. That is real nice feedback. I've only got 3 minutes up here, so I'd love to know what you're thinking."
Why don't we I'll let you finish your act, but I want you to think about in this moment how, as you prepare, you can help the audience to just hold their breath, maybe one beat longer. Obviously don't change anything about your process for doing this accurately, but just allow that little bit of extra breathing room, I think, where you can really feel the audience get with you.
He winks at you, says, "I think I understand." He's going to wave.
Clarice's, sorry for those listening at home, Anne's face is one of distinct uncomfort.
Yeah. Turns the color of her dress.
I'm now terrified.
Meanwhile, Belle and Andrick are why not me? Yeah.
So he's going to gesture off stage for the music to resume. He's going to pick up his bow again. The rat raises the grape in his finger again. Vestrin comes back to the center of the stage, scans the audience, jumps up in the air, cartwheels, shoots his arrow at the grape, and the grape sails out of the rat's hand with the arrow still attached.
Hot damn!
Oh, Clarice just went stubborn.
God, that was good. Clarice is completely losing her shit.
Cretacio is sitting next to her what is happening? Why are you?
She's breathing heavily. She's really very excited by this.
Seems strange that if he could do that the whole time, why didn't he just make that part of his show to begin with?
Now Cretacio, just looking back at his friends, is now looking at Andric, and now looks at Belle, and now looks at Clarice. Oh boy.
Just an absolute yes for me. That is yes, correct, amazing. I love it. Save that for the last, right? Like really let us feel that change in your process.
Ma'am, I have one more.
Oh, okay.
The music swells. It is very clear that this is
That's
the
not
finale.
the only thing that smells.
Vestron goes to the far wing, comes running out at full speed, grabs the bow, notches an arrow, does a triple flip in the air, and shoots a blueberry out of the rat's teeth.
Oh my god! Wow.
That's pretty incredible.
Give him a little T-Rex clap.
Tage actually did the little T-Rex clap for our listeners at home.
Clarice, in this moment, can only allow a very soft, satisfied sigh, sort of like when you perfectly pop a cork out of a champagne bottle, but like it just.
Oh my god.
Andric is in the back corner, just like jaw open. Like
Belle is on her feet, just.
You notice that Theseus, who's been sitting beside you, has his legs crossed. And
Literally everybody except for apparently Cretacio and maybe Kelonian. How does actually? Hold on, can we? How does Kelonian feel about all of this?
Oh, Kelonian is clapping, very pleased, very happy.
Kelonian is entertained.
Kelonian's note would probably be, well, the rat seems to be in a little bit of danger there. I don't think the rat needs to be standing there. Why don't we just have it, put it on a block?
How does Angel feel about it?
Or perhaps they could use a chicken.
Definitely not.
Kelonian can take comfort in the fact that the familiar will just dissolve and then come back.
True. Still good to practice compassion.
Yes. It is a familiar, though. It is not a corporeal animal, so no animals were harmed in the rehearsing of this William Tell piece.
The fun continues when Oops All Bards returns after this word from our sponsors.
Anybody, anything that you would like to do in between acts here as the stage is being reset?
Belle wants to do an insight check on the performer that just won.
Roll your insight check.
Single.
And
Belle comes from a culture where
that's not a problem.
ethical non-monogamy is completely fine. Oh, that is a 4 though. So.
Oh, I'm not even gonna roll for him then.
Yeah.
He definitely seems sexy and mysterious.
Yeah. Yeah. Confirmed.
Given that he, the expectation, the bar was set very low starting off this show, and he was really good. So not sure yet if the idea is that we're going to have a lot of like not so good folks or so. But what I'm getting at, what I'm getting at is Kelonian kind of also wants to do an insight check because like, is this guy like, is he mysterious in a not so good way? Like, is he like a
Kelonian
double
asking
agent?
the relevant questions.
Yeah. Roll.
That would be 28.
Damn.
There is definitely something about him that feels like he doesn't quite belong.
Mm-hmm.
And like after getting over the shock of it, and we were like, okay, that was like. I think a couple of us are probably replaying that whole thing in our head a couple times.
Yeah, just
does the
roll up his sleeves in slow
does
motion?
the tower tattoo with the vines around it? Does that have any particular significance? Like that symbol?
Roll me an Arcana check.
Not great, but not bad. 7.
I would just like to say for our listeners at home I'd like to acknowledge that none of us thought anything was sus about Boomer, but this guy is way too competent, so he clearly could be a threat.
and you know, to be fair, like for Clarice, the fact that a person walked on stage with a weapon and loaded it is always an alarm bell. Like she admires the skill, she wants to make the act good, but even if this had been a bad act, the idea of right before war when there are people that you don't trust, like having somebody in a room with her Uncle Gideon, like who has weapons, like that's not the vibe for her. So she is also going to have some feelings and reactions to this, but her chosen approach, I think, is actually going to be to approach the act himself and try to like engage a little and talk about like, have you ever done this with some like, you know, dead end tips, like just literally as a safety and security feature of coming into this space. Like there are concerns, there's liability, like she's going to go into sort of maybe detective voice style, right? But she is going to try to both engage the act as she was pleased by it, but
yeah, she was.
Indicate that there are concerns, genuine concerns about letting anyone just shoot past the stage.
There are a couple of minutes because they've got to clean the stagehands have to clean exploded fruit off of the stage.
Yeah.
So you can have a couple of minutes to come talk to Vestrin.
Okay.
I think Belle was also probably assuming that there would be like magical shield between the audience, and otherwise everybody in the front few rows would have to be wearing tarps and.
So.
Gallagher.
Yeah, I mean, it literally exploded a watermelon.
Yeah. It was upstage enough that it didn't.
Okay, I'm just saying.
It wasn't like Gallagher coming to the lip of the stage with a sledgehammer and a
There
weapon.
are safety precautions
Yes.
that can be taken.
That's true.
All fair, but not within Clarice's power to take.
Valid.
So she is gonna stick with. So she's gonna sidle over.
Okay.
In her tiny way, not very impressive way. And start a conversation. And while she is doing that, she is gonna try to sort of I don't know if it should be insight or investigation, but what she is trying to do is a simultaneous vibe check and like the equivalent of like a visual investigation to see if there is any other weaponry, like if there's any sense of this person holding themselves differently, like or just all that.
Choose one or the other.
Can I think when Clarice starts sidling over, Belle fully misinterprets the reason and is like, you go, girl, and gives her bardic inspiration.
Okay. I love it.
All right. That's a D6, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's stick with insight for now.
Sure.
Because we are on a military base and sometimes there are just weapons. That is a 14 plus 6, a non-nat 20.
You're welcome.
He seems very at ease in this setting. Like, whether that is the military-based setting or this more performative setting is not entirely clear, but there is not an uneasy bone in his body. And when he sees you, he smiles. And at a non-natural 20, that smile is genuine and it is warm. And he is real happy to see you walking over.
Listeners at home, Anne just had a different reaction from Clarice.
Belle's somewhere in the background going, yeah, go.
So Clarice is focused on, to some extent, just like continuing to try to figure out like the safety issues and the act. Whereas Anne is acknowledging like, cut that tension with a knife. Really excellent work. I hope you don't mind. I just have like a few questions about safety measures. Obviously, with a live audience, so many things can happen.
Do you mind if I clean my weapons while we talk?
No, no, that's fine. What does that involve?
He's just. I was going to say something that is correct, but given the horniness of this table, what he is actually doing is polishing the shafts of his arrows.
Yep.
Why do those need to be polished?
Clarice, watching the process of cleaning the arrows is a couple times gonna just lose focus. She really cares about her Uncle Gideon, but is not able to fully keep him in the front of her mind. So Clarice is gonna pause, and then after a steadying breath is going to say, so I'm wondering in terms of just like arrows, or actually in terms of like aerodynamics.
He chuckles.
Whether or not the act will work if you use blunt tipped arrows just for additional safety.
He holds the arrow that he's been polishing out to you and says, it's not that sharp.
Clarice, enticed by this, is going to extend a pointer finger and tests the point.
It's pointy, but it's not sharp.
Clarice is gonna nod her approval and then switch modes a little and just sort of ask, so, where are you from?
Belle's so proud.
Here and there.
Clarice's face falls. She does not like when people are intentionally obscure with her. That is her way.
That's my thing, bro.
And she's gonna say, mystery doesn't look good on you, babe, and walk away.
Oops All Bards returns right after this.
Back at the stage, Theseus has checked to make sure that all of the fruit detritus has been picked up and there's nothing slippery or sticky on the stage.
Belle helps with prestidigitation.
Yes, Belle does love her like house cleaning prestidigitation.
I think she just doesn't really like regular cleaning.
I think that's fair.
But when she like got old enough to discover that she could magically clean things, it was a game changer.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Theseus is a wizard, so has some magic of his own that helps this process. So Theseus is back on stage and says, next up, this one's actually a bit of a surprise. You all know him as Shy Guy, but his real name is Drawl. Drawl is going to be showing us his trick yo-yo. Come on out, Drawl.
Woo-woo! Everybody gets a woo-woo.
Yeah. So, a greenish gray-skinned half-orc comes out on stage. There is no music. There are no fancy lights. Holding a silver yo-yo. And that's it. And Drawl comes to the front of the stage, looks at all of you, turns his back. Drawl proceeds to hold out a hand, drop the yo-yo until the string goes totally slack, lets it hang there until it stops swaying, and then suddenly jerks it back up into his hand so quickly that like you might have missed it if you had blinked. Back is still to you as he begins to spiral the yo-yo, again, letting the length of the string go outward, and it traces a wide circle around his body and then gracefully returns, competing at circumnavigation. Now, here's the thing. Drawl's back is to you, so you can see some of this, not all of this. The next trick, Drawl shoots the yo-yo upward, and as it shoots upward, it actually makes these precise loops that seem almost like a ladder type pattern. And the loops suspend in the air for just a moment before the yo-yo again comes back down, catches it into his hand. And then he lifts his other hand up, takes a bit of the string into one finger and begins to spin the yo-yo between the two hands in a way that almost makes it look like he's cutting the string in half with the metallic yo-yo. As it's like intricately moving between the two hands. How is this happening? We don't know, especially because he's not facing us. And then it smoothly glides right back into his hand. And then with that, he turns around, he bows, he says, "Thank you." And he just walks off stage.
Can we see it again, but like, have you face us?
I have really bad stage fright.
Oh. Oh, I have an idea.
Okay.
So Belle's gonna just like usher him off the stage and then like do like a little like and then, assuming he agrees, he will reemerge on the stage with a blindfold on.
Amazing.
Because then he doesn't have to see he doesn't know which way he's facing.
I love this. So now that you can see Drawl in the light, you see not just this greenish gray skinned half orc, but you see that he also is heavily tattooed. A lot of his tattoos have this imagery of like a one-eyed entity. There are clouds and vaguely humanoid shapes, and there's also a bloody spear. And Drawl is going to repeat the process. Somehow with a blindfold, it's even more impressive.
Yeah.
And just again goes, "Thank you," and goes running off stage.
Blindfolded?
Blindfolded. Hold on. Actually, hold on.
We're
Gonna. Yeah, runs off stage blindfolded, no problems.
Okay. Good for him.
We don't hear like a big crash from the wings.
Nope.
Bella's gonna look at Theseus and like give thumbs up, like
You are brilliant.
Thank you.
Does anybody feel like they need to do anything for Drawl or talk to Drawl?
Do any of us recognize any of the tattoos?
Roll me religion check.
14. Depending on the pantheon, I should maybe get advantage, but probably not the same pantheon.
Probably not the same pantheon, but I think it's enough that like you've encountered half orcs before, and you know that they worship a one-eyed. Well, that orcs in general worship a one-eyed god, and that half orcs have inherited this religion. The bloody spear is an image that is commonly associated with their god.
Cool.
Is there anything? Does anybody want to talk, offer feedback, etc.?
I mean, I think Belle's probably going to do a nice pep talk of like, that was really good. You should be really proud.
Clarice's experience with the last act has her just sort of looking for insights in every performer. She wants to specifically see if she actually thinks the performer saying they had stage fright was like the complete story.
Mm-hmm.
That was a crit fail. I do have a +5 modifier, but it was a crit fail.
As far as you can tell, Drawl is just absolutely petrified of being on stage, and why he even volunteered to do this is unclear.
Do I have the opportunity to also just sort of from my seat gauge whether or not, and I don't know if this is a separate check, whether or not the blindfold was actually blocking this person's vision successfully?
Roll an investigation check.
That is a 15 + 3.
You recognize that piece of fabric that Belle used to blindfold him. It's like silk chiffon, so it obscured his vision but didn't blind him completely.
Clarice is going to make a mental note that it is a little sus.
Okay.
It was the blindfold that Belle gave him.
I think Belle's comments notwithstanding, Clarice thinks that was a little too tidy a fix if it was real.
That's fair. Belle, being somebody who also works with tools for performance, wants to like talk with them after their piece about like the yo-yo and what's it made of, and like I feel like she's done poi at some point. And
okay, do you want to have that conversation now?
I don't know as much as Belle does, so I don't know if we can maybe just skip over it.
Okay. So we'll just say, like,
do declare.
we'll just say, so you're gonna catch up with him later to talk to him about his
like
craft.
after, like I think she's gonna do the like pep talk thing after he comes off stage, and then it's gonna be like, also like, can you tell me about your yo-yo? Like, it's so cool. What is it made out of? Da, da,
It's
da, da.
metal.
What kind of metal?
Metal.
That's not a kind of metal.
And he's just gonna kind of like blush, tuck his chin, and walk away.
Okay. It was nice meeting you.
And he just like holds up a hand.
Can I do an insight check
Yes.
of what just happened?
Yes.
That was a 3.
Seems shy.
Great. I think maybe it was made of metal.
Oops All Bards will be back after this brief ad break.
Theseus is back on stage. I am so pleased to announce our next act. You know her as Chameleon. Her real name, her name that she used as a performer before she enlisted, is Jan Deek. And doesn't say another word, just like flourishes, steps off the stage. The stage goes dark for just a moment. And when the lights come up, there is a beautiful red-headed woman, human woman, standing in the middle of the stage. The music kicks on, and she bends down and picks up the hem of her long skirt and begins to twirl. And when she stops twirling, she's a tiny goblin in a tutu standing in a pile of discarded clothes. The goblin runs full tilt toward the front of the stage, slides on its knees, or on their knees, toward the front, and by the time it gets all the way downstage, it is a tiefling wearing a flowing caftan. A twist! The tiefling then turns her back to the audience, spreads her arms wide, and allows the sleeves of the caftan to billow downward. And then she crosses her arms, tugging on the opposite sleeves, and the caftan appears to turn inside out. And then as she turns around, she is now a tabaxi. In tabaxi form, she slips off the caftan because she's covered in fur, so she can be without clothing for a moment, and it's okay. Walks to one side of the stage, executes a tumbling pass. On her last flip, she dives through a hoop that has what appears to be a gown attached to it, and when she lands, she's back in her human form. And then for the finale, she comes to the center of the stage, begins to bounce her shoulders upside down, turning her head right, center, left, center. And each time she turns back to center, she has a different face of a different race. And the music ends, and she takes a bow, and she walks off.
I have questions.
Do you call out her name, or?
So yeah, Belle will call out after her, Jan.
And she turns around to you, and she's in her human form, the woman with the long red hair.
Yeah, and she's just gonna be like, that was amazing. The flip, the use of the clothes, I loved it. It was wonderful. Do you want to perform at the Jubilation Festival this summer? Assuming we, all survive.
If we survive, and if I'm able to get a discharge, it would be my honor to return to your family's festival.
Yay!
Other than Theseus, are there any other, I'll say, like, officer types kind of hanging around, observing the...
No, the officers are strategizing for going to war.
Yeah.
Weird.
Where is Theseus right now?
Still sitting in the front row of the audience.
And Andric, after that performance, would kind of just quietly walk forward and say, sorry, what is their position in the military?
Do you mean her rank?
Yes, what do you have her do?
Military intelligence. What else would she do with those talents?
Just making sure.
Clarice is also making a beeline for Theseus after this. But really because she does not understand why he was down on his acts. These have been, with the exception of Bomber, all
pretty solid performances. And so Clarice, given the way that Theseus had welcomed them, as like concerned by these performers, Clarice is trying to get to the bottom of that and would like to sort of not grill Theseus, but like she's fully doing an insight check on him too.
Okay.
And she is during the performance doing an insight check on the changeling, obviously, just to see like what is the sense of like, is this person coming alive as a performer in a way that they like really do love it, or are they like, because this person obviously enlisted, they say they enlisted, right? So, you know, is this just a thing they can do but they don't love? That's kind of the insight check.
Roll me an insight check on Jan first.
That's only an 8.
Jan is a very competent performer.
Okay. And now
on Theseus.
Yes, please. That's 22.
This is Theseus's legacy, and they are very well aware that they might not survive past tomorrow. So their nervousness was less about the quality of the performer and more about getting everything perfect.
Okay. Having ascertained that, Clarice is going to say, can you help me understand why Bomber went first?
People tend to come late to these things.
Got it.
Also, his father is a captain, so, you know.
Yeah. Total.
Yeah.
Okay. And having had that conversation, Clarice is going to stay up in the front row, just to sort of make it a little easier to gauge what's going on with each of these acts. But
I think
she's
right now there's only one row.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, she wasn't in a chair for the last act. Sure. So now she's going to assume one.
Okay. So before we go into the next act, then I'm just going to ask you to look around and notice Cretacio seems very quiet.
Yeah. Cretacio, buddy, I thought you'd be really happy. This is what you've always wanted. You feel like you had a family who didn't appreciate your artistic side, and here we are on the military camp, and they're on the eve of battle. They are still making time for your love and mine, the arts.
You know, when I left this camp 4 years ago to become a musician, I didn't even say goodbye to my mom. I didn't say goodbye to my brothers or my sisters or my uncles or aunts or anyone, my cousins, because none of them believed in what I was doing. None of them believed that music had any place in our lives. You know, I only saw my mom tap her feet one time when I was a kid to a song. And I thought that I had to leave and never look back in order to do any of this. And I come back, and the camp that my mom is running is having a talent show. It's like everything that I did, everything that I sacrificed for the last 4 years was for nothing. I'm just angry. And I get off the train, and Mom gives me a hug as though she cares. You know, a few days ago, she wasn't going to come to graduation at all. I don't understand what's happening here, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel about this.
Well, maybe it was your hard work and dedication in those 4 years that made folks change their minds around here. Maybe they had to come to terms with the fact that one of their own, whom they love very much, cares about the arts very much.
Maybe you're right. I think I need to have a talk with my mother.
In the background, as you're having this conversation, you hear a swelling of drums and a series of small pyrotechnic explosions. This is the finale of the show. From a distance, you can see 2 red-headed dwarves who are just wailing away on these drums. The explosions are definitely being provided by Theseus. They're just minor illusion that they're casting. And as that is wrapping up, Gideon and Reina, Cretacio's mom, reemerge, and there's a third person with them. A small, elegant-looking halfling. As they approach you as a group, Clarice, Your mom is here.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Hello, Clarice. I'm so glad you're all right.
I'm also gonna notice that my mom has walked in just as I was talking about this, so I'm gonna stroll over too, and then look at Clarice, and then look at this woman, and then look back at Clarice, and slowly back away. My turn will be later.
Clarice is gonna walk over very slowly, in a way that, to those who don't know her, seems unenthusiastic. But I think Belle at least will clock that this is actually like Clarice exercising aggressive restraint, and actually like Clarice is on the edge of being very emotional. And is doing everything she can to keep her sort of stoic exterior. But actually, she looks just like inside like a little kid who just wants to run and hug her mom and cry.
Roll an insight check as you're walking toward your mother.
That's a 2 plus my modifier is like a 3 or something. So
your mom is standing there very stoically.
Yeah. So Clarice is gonna walk over, and get ready to speak, and then realize that her voice actually will betray her if she says anything. So she's just gonna stick out a little hand, like, and say, in a croaky, almost emotional way, but as little sound as possible, MJ.
She swats your hand away and envelops you in a big hug.
Clarice immediately starts to cry.
So does she.
She's trying to hold it together. And she just, it's been a lot. And so the tears start rolling. And she's trying to be aware of the fact that she's in public and that maybe this isn't okay. And she just can't stop it when it starts.
Gideon is standing nearby and recognizes what's happening, and he's going to kind of stand between you and your mom and the rest of the party to shield you. And then just do his best to tune out the conversation. And your mom is going to hold you. My dear darling girl. Oh, I'm so glad you're all right.
I've been so worried about you guys.
We're okay. We're okay. Your father is on his way to Shalamir. He's with Harrian and Carlotta. And they've asked him to help try to broker some sort of peace.
Okay. What do we need to do? How do we help him?
We can't.
Clarice wrinkles up her face really tight. Again, trying to get a handle on the tears. Because she's had to step away before and not help her parents. But in this moment, having just graduated, having done all these things, she doesn't feel like it's fair anymore. She doesn't want to have to fight and do all that stuff, but it doesn't feel right for her dad to be away figuring this out.
Listen to me. You're safer. We're both safer here. Your father will be all right. I have absolute faith in him.
Can we? Oh, okay. Okay.
Clarice, I believe because I have to believe that this will work out. And when we are on the other side, there will still be a place for us. I want you by my side at the Busboro group. You don't have to make any decisions now. I know that this is challenging, but just know. Just know there's a place for you.
Clarice is going to take a settling breath or two, sort of find her balance. And then she's just going to slip a hand into her mom's hand and squeeze.
The bards are kind of just trying not to observe what is happening. Is there anything anybody feels like they need to do at this moment?
Keylonian feels like he needs to give some hugs.
Yes. Go for it.
Hugs all around from Keylonian.
Anybody who is consenting to a hug, line up.
Belle will always consent to a hug. But if Keylonian seems to be going to hug Clarice and her mom, Belle will also intervene.
Yeah, man. I'll talk to her later. Yeah, we'll share a
bring it in here.
Wonderful little hug.
During the rehearsals, what was the source of the music?
There was a gramophone off the side of the stage.
Yeah. Andric would, I assume there's probably like a crate of records or something there. Once the rehearsals are over, Andric's probably going to co-opt the gramophone and dig through the crate a little bit and just look for something where he can spend some quiet time.
Okay. Roll an investigation check.
It's gonna be it's a 17.
You mostly find the music for the performances for that evening, but at the back of the crate you find that same harpsichord record that you were listening to at the beginning when we first met you.
Great. It's gonna take, just 20 minutes and listen to the one side of that.
Theseus comes on and says, "All right, everyone. Talent show is in 5 hours. I'd recommend that all of our performers and our guests who I understand have had a quite long journey, go take a nap."
Long rest.
Exactly.
Nice. Sort of long rest,
You are getting a long rest. You are going to need it.
Oh boy.
You all head to the barracks that you have been assigned to for the evening. It's one of the buildings off the side of the camp. You're all in the same barrack. And I would say probably you all fall asleep pretty immediately. You've been up for at least 24 hours at this point, with the exception of your snooze on the train. About 4 hours later, you wake to a rapping on your door. It's Theseus saying, "All right, my loves, it's time. We've got the talent show in an hour. I'd assume you'd like to clean yourselves up a bit. Shower facilities are around the back, and I'll see you in the theater."
I like to think that we're dead asleep, but Theseus just barges in. All right, everyone. Yep.
Pretty much.
Great.
And again, Theseus projects. All right, so you guys all get to tidy up, head to the theater. Is there anything that you need to do en route?
Clarice is going to drop a letter in a whisper tube to send off to her dad.
Okay. Yeah, there's a whisper tube dispatch not far from the building where the talent show is happening, because that's right near the headquarters. The whisper tubes are really meant for officers and executives and politicians to use, but you know how to find the whisper tube.
And he's on an official mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're a busbro. Yeah. All right. So you all head to the theater. Theseus has reserved the front row of seats for you.
Very kind.
I think when Theseus came in, Belle was already awake and doing dancer stretches, just she was on a train, and then she's just sitting there doing some back bends.
I think that's fair. I'm going to allow you to do that despite, like, that cutting your long rest just a little bit short.
Yeah. I mean, like, not, like, a super long time,
Yeah.
but just, like...
I think that's...
Taking that moment to, like, limber up and be ready to...
Morning sun salutation.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. So you're heading across the military base. You get to the theater. As it's getting dark, Theseus is reserved the front row of seats for you. Is there anything else that anybody needs or wants to do on your way or as you were sitting down?
What's the general vibe of the base?
As you walk across the base, it's very quiet, but once you get into the room where the talent show is being held, the vibe is actually very excited and upbeat.
Clarice is just gonna ask around, particularly Uncle Gideon, has anyone set up, like, a shield yet? There's a couple performances where, like, splatter might happen.
Gideon holds up, like, a poncho. He's like, oh no, we're gonna do this the old-fashioned way.
Clarice is gonna shake her head and be like, no. Like, there's literal arrows flying.
From the top marksman in the company, I think we're gonna be okay.
Uncle Gideon, like, sometimes it's okay to play it safe.
If you want to cast a protective spell, by all means, but...
That was just passive-aggressive. You absolutely know that I do not have any defensive spells. How dare you?
Kelonian would definitely do it.
Okay.
I think Belle, having been in the college that she was in and worshipping the goddess that she does, probably has, like, some sort of pre-performance ritual that she has to do, and she's just doing
Are you gonna,
that.
like, go lead vocal warm-ups backstage with everybody else, or is this just for you before you watch the performance?
No, I think it's like asking the goddess to bless the performance, like going to each corner of the stage and, you know, inviting good vibes and may everybody be safe, may everybody be, you know, may your pitch be on pitch and may your flips be sticking all the landings.
Do a religion check for me.
Sure. That's a 7.
Yeah, you do it. You
Cool.
go to the four corners of the stage. You might, like, be smudging something or whatever, but you've done your blessing.
Doing her little northeast southwest tossing of sparkles.
Yes, exactly.
May they not be sharp. May they not be flat. May they be natural.
Yes. And may all their breaths be supported.
Yes. All right. So, Kelonian, are you going to cast some sort of spell to protect?
Oh, well, I will do that, but I would probably do it just when the act comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. So everybody gets settled in. Belle returns to her seat after blessing the stage and the performers. Theseus takes the stage and welcomes everybody. Thanks everyone so much for coming. As you know, tonight is a very special night because we may not all see tomorrow. I hope
Clarice considers booing.
Well, I guess technically we'll all see tomorrow, but we might not see the day after tomorrow. I do hope that you all enjoy this show and what it means, and that it makes you feel a bit more ready for whatever's to come. And Theseus is going to walk off the stage, and the house lights are going to go down. And then they're going to stay down. And they're still down. And all of a sudden, all of the echo shards around the perimeter of the room light up.
You know, it's so nice to see the Urvara military still going strong after it led the coup that resulted in my execution. Lucky for you, I'm the forgiving type. Besides, most of you soldiers weren't even alive when my seat was stolen from me. Gideon Stormcaller, on the other hand. Hi there, Gideon. Don't think I've forgotten that you're the one who pulled me out of my home, marched me all the way to Sovereign House, and put that noose around my neck. You were one of my most trusted advisors, and your betrayal may have hurt me worst of all. Don't worry, I'm going to make you suffer, too. And there's not a thing those cute little bodyguards of yours can do about it.
Bodyguards.
They are
Hey,
cute though.
we're called the Bodyguards.
Yes!
I just need to roll something.
God bless Cretacio.
As the voice of Malvo is saying that to Gideon, Gideon lets out a sharp shout. It's dark, but you hear this scream, and then you hear him say, I'm okay. I'm mostly okay." And we're going to pause right there. Join us in 2 weeks, give or take, for another very special episode of the Barbecue. And then 2 weeks after that for Oops All Bards episode 12, the season finale. Can you believe it? I can't. As always, I've been your host, Jillian Ashley Blair Ivy. And on behalf of the cast and crew here at Oops All Bards, thank you for listening. We will see you again soon.
Oops All Bards is created, GM'd, and directed by Jillian Ashley Blair Ivy. This episode was produced, edited, and sound designed by Nate Runkle. Oops All Bards stars Ashley Banks as Belle Sernamiel, Ann Coleman as Clarice Sauercloud, Ross Curry as Andric Harrowhold, Tage Sinha Das as Cretacio Thunderthigh, and Bob Killian as Colonian Stumps. The Oops All Bards theme song is by Bob Killian, with additional lyrics by Jillian Ashley Blair Ivy. Oops All Bards is executive produced by The Porch Room. We are part of the Porch Room Network on Spreaker Prime. For more information, visit oopsallbards.com. Thanks, and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to Oops All Bards on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your podcatcher of choice. And follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Oops All Bards. We'll see you next time.
Oops, it's all Bards. Oh, what a mess.
Another quality podcast from the Porch Room.
We have not a lot of time, so we need to speed run through our encounter.
Sorry for bringing all that emotion in.
Yeah, no,
That's
that
what
was
we
pretty quick.
need.
That was beautiful.
Nice.
We spent a lot more time being horny.
Yeah.
We are Bards.
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't recording any of it.
Fuck you, Nate.
Oh my god. That would honestly be hilarious.